All right, what's going on, everyone? Preston Stewart, Marcus, coming back from T-Sply. What's up, dude?
How you doing, man?
Good Thanksgiving?
Had a good Thanksgiving. I attempted to put lights up after Thanksgiving and it almost caught on fire. One of the bulbs broke and it started smoking. So here we
Christmas,
are.
Christmas
How
lights?
already.
Oh,
Already. Are you a fan of the old Christmas lights?
no, man. I don't like. We got like weeds in the yard, bushes untrimmed. I don't put lights up. I just don't like spending time doing that. So I'm lazy. But
You
yeah,
gotta do it.
thought we'd jump into some things that have happened in the Middle East, Israel
Okay.
specifically here in the past couple days. So we've been doing this kind of catch up for a couple weeks now. It's been fun. Thought we'd keep it rolling. Um,
Yeah.
So as we're recording this at 11 a.m. Central on Friday, November 24th. So the hostage and prisoner exchange is ongoing. By the
Yeah.
time you see this, there's probably going to be more information. Hopefully, the information is that it's just continuing.
Yes. I
There,
think everyone expected it to happen. Like we came to the table. Okay, phase one. This is happening. I don't think there's any surprises here. This is exactly what was expected.
yeah, it's just complicated when you think about it, right? Because you've got Israel working with Hamas, a
Yeah.
terrorist organization, right? And they're running this through Egypt. So there's a lot of parties involved here to where, like, look, I hope, fingers crossed, this works out well and a bunch of people end up home. It's just there's a lot at play.
Was there a reason as to why they didn't go straight from to Israel? Or because that's the report I saw too, going to Egypt and then up. Was that just the terms?
I haven't heard
Wonder
the
why.
reasoning there. I did see one. So there's a ceasefire as well right now. There was one
Yep.
report this morning. Unfortunately, it looks like a bunch of news outlets picked it up, said that Israel or that Hamas violated the ceasefire 15 minutes in. Did you see that?
I saw there was a potential for a missile launch out of Gaza, confirmed, unconfirmed, but now we had that was before the whole exchange. So
Yeah, I just the reason I bring that up is when looking through a bunch of different Israeli sources, they said like it looks like there's a launch, and then they came back and said no. Um,
yeah,
you know, great, false alarm, which is a good thing. But by the time I was looking up those articles, they were already out there. And I wonder how many
yeah.
people now think that Hamas violated that ceasefire, even though it doesn't look like that happened.
Right, exactly. And regardless of the fact, Israel needs those hostages no matter what. So it's a weird there's a weird gray area of they violated it, put the hostages back, but to your point, like why would you report that? And now how many people saw that for the split 15 minutes and now this is all tainted? Like
They also haven't
I don't
taken it down. Like if you or when I was Googling that, I said like Hamas violates ceasefire to see like who's publishing it. And those articles popped, like Newsweek was one of the first ones, popped right up at the top. So
yeah,
we'll see if they change that. But either way.
you got to take your time. Um that happens a lot in media. I want to get your take on the US perspective as this is happening. Right now, we know Israel is chilling. They're supposed to be on a ceasefire, but beyond the borders, did you hear about like the AC-130 that was caught on open source and then confirmed? An AC-130 was actually utilized in Iraq to take out the enemies of the United States.
I didn't know that it was unintentionally leaked, if that's the right way to put it. First, I just saw the official Pentagon announcement. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So they were going
So,
after the Hezbollah brigades in Iraq, is who they hit.
uh, yeah, yes and no. You have the Islamic resistance in Iraq, which is not on. Have you ever gone to the CIA website and you can see the database of all of the groups that the United States has deemed the bad guys?
It's been a while. It's a long list.
Yeah, they're not on it. Okay, they're not on it. And when the war kicked off in Israel, it's like, oh, we have these, we don't know who's attacking us, the Islamic resistance in Iraq. But specifically in this, that is who we can assume this AC-130 was tracking and took out because we're about 80 attacks in from where the US has finally really done something about it. But yeah, it was interesting how on open source there was an AC-130J Ghost Rider was spotted flying over near Ramadi, Iraq, which is a little west of Baghdad. And then a day later, Central Command says, yeah, we used an AC-130 and we totally eliminated our targets. I thought it's rather interesting
So
to see that. But
I got an AC-130 story for you here in a second. But
yeah,
I think one of the challenges is the Islamic resistance in Iraq is a broad term. that
Yes.
incorporates a bunch of different groups that kind of use that terminology. So
Yeah.
it's not even calling it one organization isn't necessarily accurate,
Yes.
right? It's almost like an organization being called Iranian-backed militias. Like there's so many groups within. But so
Yeah.
the reason I say they targeted the Hezbollah brigade, some of the Hezbollah
Sure.
units in Iraq, is that that organization on their Telegram channel has been posting the funeral arrangements and
Okay,
pictures.
I saw that.
Yeah,
There was one guy that popped up. Okay, can you explain that?
it was just on the Kataib Hezbollah Telegram channel. They put
Okay.
out they're pissed. 8 of their guys died.
Yeah.
And they blamed the United States. Like, and it came out right after the US put out that information of the strike. So that's an Iraqi group
Okay.
made up mostly of Iraqis, but
Mhm.
they are fighting kind of under the look. This is where we are today. All right, Hezbollah is a proxy of Iran, and Hezbollah has a proxy of their own in Iraq, multiple proxies. So it's a proxy of a
Yeah.
proxy, man.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a Russian nesting doll here, but
Right. Okay.
nice and confusing. But
Yeah. But then there's an attack in Syria, Islamic resistance in Iraq. It's like, again, it's an umbrella term, but that's why I said yes. We don't know. Maybe yes, Hezbollah. But if Hezbollah posted that, probably Hezbollah.
well, Hezbollah brigades. So
Got it.
specifically, these weren't necessarily Lebanese fighters.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a group that fashions themselves after
Okay.
Hezbollah. So my AC-130 story, I was a fire support officer in the Army. So we would talk with
Yeah.
aircraft. And I went through, on the Army side, JFO, Joint Fires Observer, which is like, as I don't want to overplay this. It's like the Army equivalent. It's the step short of being a JTAC. So
Yeah.
the Air Force has the JTACs. In the
Mhm.
Army, technically, we go through JTACs to coordinate strikes.
Yeah.
We have something called Joint Fires, which like makes you more capable of
Okay.
giving accurate targeting data, things like that.
Okay.
But I could talk to aircraft all day long, fixed wing, but I could not call in the strikes. I had to route that through a JTAC. So we were getting ready to go on a mission in May of 2011 in Western Afghanistan, and they were going over the resources overhead and the assets in the area, and it was loaded, man. Like so many different fixed wing platforms, including a Spectre gunship.
Okay.
And it was like, we're
Yeah.
conventional force, right? So I was never
Yeah.
Rangers, SF, anything like that. We
Right.
don't get Spectres. And it wasn't directly assigned to us, but it was like, as a fire support officer, you don't look at just what's assigned, but like what's also overhead in the region. Because if
Right.
something kicks off, you want to know what you can call in nearby. It was like,
Yeah.
okay, here we go. And what was happening was there was a SEAL mission 10, 15 miles away, and they had AC-130 support. But we had been told that, like, hey, once that mission completes, because there's not going to be a lot of overlap, they might be able to shift over and support you guys.
Okay.
But then we got on the ground and none of those assets were there. They decided not to do the mission.
Okay.
Because that was the night that another SEAL team went into Abbottabad and killed bin Laden.
Wow.
So we were on the ground there, and the news came out over the radio that bin Laden was killed. There was no connection between that SEAL team and that SEAL team. I think they probably were just, if it was related at all, it was probably like, how about we just focus on one thing tonight?
Yeah.
But anyways, that's the closest I ever came to utilizing an AC-130.
Any excuse to use it. We have a rock formation over here that looks sketchy. AC-130.
It's nasty, dude. Hate to be on the receiving end of that. We
exactly.
I don't want to go down rabbit holes of telling war stories here, but we did have a couple nights in southern Afghanistan where they were getting after it pretty close, like probably 300 meters away from our front gate, of just hammering some Taliban positions. There were some SF guys out there, some Rangers at times, and AC-130 overhead, just like for 45 minutes straight, which is like constant explosions. So to have one of those overhead is a bad day.
Well, when it was leaked, everyone was like, this thing is not just flying around for fun. Like, when those are up in the air, like, they mean business. And of course, 24 hours later, the US is like, yeah, it did its job. So,
but real quick, a thank you to the sponsor of today's video, BulletSafe. BulletSafe offers bulletproof vests, ballistic plates, armor panels, gas masks, and respirators to the security and banking sectors for personal defense, law enforcement, EMTs, and fire departments. Their new VP3 comes in at $299.97, is NIJ level 3A tested, it's 50% thinner and 25% lighter than previous models, and offers protection from handgun calibers up to .44 Magnum. BulletSafe goal is for people in their vests to work with less stress, and for parents who work in dangerous fields to return home to their children every night. Check out the link in the description and use code PStewart10 for 10% off your first bullet safe order. So I got a question for you that I've started to see some comments online, and I can't tell how much of it is just trolling versus genuine interest pushing back. Right? It's always hard to tell the difference there. But Israel continues to put out the names and images of their soldiers who have been killed.
Okay.
And by name, by date, all that stuff.
Yeah.
I've seen people start to say that those numbers are grossly underreported.
Okay.
And I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Okay, so just to clarify, let's say Jim was taken out on this day. God bless you, thank you. Are you saying that people are like, he's not the only one? There's like 7 others, but they're only reporting one? Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, so the official Israeli site has, as of today, 392 soldiers who have been killed since October 7th, and that includes the October 7th attacks.
Okay. Does Israel have a reason to fake those numbers? Because the issue is like this is a very active conflict. Like on social media, family members could just verify this is true or not true. For me, no matter what, if it's coming from one side, you have to be careful. And if Israel, they are the only one reporting this, like I don't see a reason as to why they would fake it other than to minimize like their losses, like how great we're doing. Is that the vibe you're getting? Or I don't know how to read that.
Yeah, that's the vibe I'm getting from people's comments. Some folks saying that. I don't think that's accurate. I think the number that Israel's put out is I think it's correct for a couple of reasons. Yeah. Israel's a small country, and they just mobilized a significant portion of their population. I don't think that you can hide casualties for very long, if at all.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's a challenge. There's the free flow of information across Israel would make that very, very challenging to do at all. I think what is probably happening is they're not putting out the number of wounded soldiers each day. We rarely did that either in Iraq and Afghanistan. So I imagine what happens is people are looking at some of these Qassam Brigade's announcements saying they struck 17 vehicles, and then the next day there's the announcement that 1 Israeli soldier is killed, and people are like, wrong, it's got to be so many more.
Right. These brigades are launching their own info beyond the Israeli Defense Forces. And like, I get it, because they sort of do work not independent, but they're very like prideful of their units, and they want to make sure people know what's happening. This sort of happened with the US military, where like the soldiers were reported to be a casualty, but a contractor wasn't, maybe, and like the numbers are not fully there. That's the only way I could see this possibly happening with the Israeli Defense Forces, where if we're going to go that route, maybe like a contractor for them was taken out, but we just didn't see that number. But this is
I don't think another thing people have pointed to is the fact that a ceasefire is negotiated, because one of the challenges, everybody wants to say there's a reason this had to be done. And I have seen some say the reason the ceasefire was negotiated because Israel was suffering such high losses. Again, I think the focus for the ceasefire is get some of these dang hostages home. So anyways, I wanted to bring that up because
sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I wanted to bring that up just because I've seen it floating out there. I don't think it's grounded with any solid evidence, but it does keep circulating. So I thought it was worth at least talking to.
We also don't know what that number would be for Israel to be like, we've lost 100 men, we need to stop. I've seen zero evidence that Israel would stop, especially going into northern Gaza. I think we downplay how difficult it was for Israel to get there, especially with the combat footage that came out. Again, there's no way to correlate what would it take for Israel to just stop and do the ceasefire. And that's why I agree with you to the point of the ceasefire had to happen. They had to get at least some live hostages. There's been none. This is the only way they've been able to do it. And Hamas releasing them at the beginning of the conflict for like some fuel and stuff.
Wasn't there one Israeli soldier that was brought home early on? There's like little information came out about that.
Yes, but then that was tainted when it came out that they admitted that they wounded their own Israeli soldier in the air campaign. But then obviously, I don't know if you know about this.
No, separate
the Israeli soldier. Yeah.
No, I'm saying the hostage that was returned home as a female soldier. I think there was one one soldier. There were the two elderly women. There were
Yeah.
two American citizens, and then there
Yep.
was, I think, one additional soldier. I think 5 have been released at this point.
Okay. Then I'm wrong about that.
Early
Okay.
on. Yeah. All right. Next one.
Can we talk about the leaflets that's happening right now? This like, what do you think about this? Israel is like, okay, ceasefire, and hey, if you're in the South, don't come up here. Even if the terms say you can do whatever you want and we can do nothing about it, don't come here. And not only that, after the ceasefire, it's still down. We're going down. We're gonna take out all of Hamas. So don't come up here. What do you think about that?
Sounds like a temporary ceasefire. I mean, Israel's been pretty clear since this deal was announced that the fighting's not over.
Okay.
They're not stopping. This thing is far from done. They haven't accomplished their end goal of eliminating or severely reducing Hamas's ability. So, yeah, I think it's temporary. I think this is short term. I think it's evidence that the fighting is going to continue. Nothing too much beyond that. Israel spent so much dang time trying to get civilians out of the north.
Yeah.
The idea that you just open it up and let people come back in, like it defeats the purpose of there are still a significant amount of combat operations that have to take place in Gaza City. That is nowhere near clear at this point.
What's interesting is that, Israel is in northern Gaza. That's where they set their campaign. We dropped leaflets. I mean, Israel's almost foreshadowing, look, we still have a lot to do in northern Gaza. What exactly is a lot to do? Find all of Hamas, destroy the tunnels. But look, southern Gaza, be prepared. We're coming for you. And the only reason why, again, I bring up the leaflet thing is like, technically under the ceasefire agreement, civilians can do whatever they want. And so can Hamas. So what would Israel do even if they just all decide to go back up there? Like, what do you do then?
I think they're going to stop them at the checkpoints. I don't think they're going to allow civilians to flow north. I haven't seen any reports of that, but if again, there's no reason to they're doing everything they can to get, or it seems like it, to get civilians off that battlefield in the north. Like, just don't take 75 steps backwards in 4 days.
Yeah.
But so on that note, up in North Gaza, most of the focus has been in around Shifa for a little while here with the hospital and the tunnels.
Yeah.
I want to get your thoughts on every day now. Israel's putting out more information, evidence, maybe is the way to put it, that Hamas used Shifa as a military facility. What do you think at this point? What have they proven? What do they have left to prove, if anything?
I want to point out, just for your sake, go to the very beginning of the conflict and look at the videos and look at them now. They used to be these 30-second clips of this flashy editing and like, see, we told you. Now we get to 7-minute long videos, 10-minute long videos of like the entirety of what Israel's trying to show. To me, what Israel said was El Shifa Hospital has tunnels under it. Here's the video. See, we told you there's tunnels under here. Now the question is, to what extent was the tunnel system used at? Was it used as a headquarters? Was it just used as a quick place to get up in there, pop some shots off, and go back under? And that to me seems to be the distinction, especially when you read a lot of the comments and look at some of the media sources of like, to me personally, it looks like, hey, Hamas was using the tunnels. I mean, what more do you do from there? And I'm also seeing reports that they're starting to just destroy the tunnels. What do you think?
They've been destroying a lot of tunnel entrances all across Gaza. The reason I ask is I think that there's a handful of folks who for a long time have said Hamas uses the tunnels for military purposes, and there's some under Shifa Hospital. So like, there's nothing new, right? They're set, they're convinced, they don't need any more information, and they're probably frustrated that videos continue to come out hammering this thing home. On the other side of the spectrum, you've got folks that are not going to believe it no matter what.
Right.
And I think somewhere in the middle is who this footage continues to be for. And even
that
if
was
that
my next
number's
question. Who is the video for you and me, or is it for the outside powers making sure Israel is in check? Because again, at the end of the day, does Israel really even have to be posting these videos? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think the way to look at it is through the lens of the most skeptical person who could be convinced.
Okay.
So eliminate that group, 1%, 5%, whatever it is, that's going to call these AI generated from the get-go. Like, what are we going to do? There's nothing you can do there. But the group that is skeptical but could be convinced otherwise, I think that's who they're aimed at. I don't know what percentage that makes up right now.
Okay.
But if I look at the videos through that light, I think what people could push back on at this point is they're waiting for a command center.
Yeah.
Because nobody knows what
Exactly.
that's going to look like, and it's definitely
Right.
not going to look like, you know, the villain headquarters from Bond movies or something. Like,
Well, you had brought it up the last time we did this show. Was Israel portrayed like this epic and a version of like we're expecting something huge. It's like multi-layer tunnel, and then Israel's like, it goes down. There's some stairs, and then there's a 50 meter shaft. And what do you think about the effectiveness of like, you know, is it working? Is it not working? Do you think Israel still needs to fix the way that they're presenting this?
no, it's going to take time. What they need to
Yeah.
present is, if you think we can go back to Vietnam
Yeah.
and look at, you'd see a picture from inside of a Viet Cong tunnel and be like,
Yeah.
I don't know, looks like a tunnel. There's a dude crawling with a flashlight. Looks terrifying.
Yeah.
The last thing
Yeah.
I'd want to do is go in there and clear that.
Yeah.
But you couldn't understand the complexity of that tunnel network until they pulled out and did some animations from the side,
Yeah.
and really
Okay.
showed like, look at this and how intricate the underground network is.
Okay.
That's what Israel's going to have to do, is map this underground network. And they can't do it right now because they haven't cleared all the areas. That could take
Right.
weeks or even months. But to me, that is the end state of the evidence around Shifa Hospital, is
Okay.
when they can show pictures and videos from all these different areas and map it together into like a 3D or a 2D
Yeah.
graphic overlay,
Yeah.
and say, here, this is what we mean when we say command node.
Okay. So what do we do from here? We're seeing it firsthand. What do we do from here? Like, that's it, mission complete. We know. Also, the medical director of the hospital was detained. Did you see that?
Yeah.
Do you think that was a bad look, or what is Israel trying to accomplish with this hospital? Because I think people know that it was used. Is it just that people want more? They want really to show how evil Hamas is. Like where's that line? That's what I'm trying to figure out. I don't know.
I think the fact that you get people pushing back on everything at this point shows that
Okay.
there's still room to go.
Okay.
We've quickly, I talked to somebody recently and said, you know, in the first week or so, maybe even 2 weeks after this conflict kicked off, people would condemn Hamas left and right.
Mhm.
That's stopped in the last
Yeah.
few weeks. And I'm not seeing nearly as many people come out condemning Hamas. That's all shifted over to condemning Israel for everything. So I think
Mhm.
the fact that there's not as much focus on what Hamas has done and is still capable of shows that there's still a lot of room in the information space.
Do you think this opens up the door now for Israel to not have permission, but they've proven that, hey, we need to go to other soft spots, maybe a school, maybe a playground. Do you think we're in that area of this is why we're showing the evidence? Have you seen anything of that nature?
Yeah, they already have, though.
Okay.
They've put out some
Okay.
footage inside of schools. There was a rocket
Yeah.
launch site inside of a Boy Scout building.
Okay.
They've already released tunnels underneath mosques, hiding drones and
Yeah.
rockets. So
Okay.
that's ongoing, and that happened before Shifa as well. I
Right.
think honestly, it's a big hospital, it's a big claim, and it's got a lot of
Okay.
attention right now. But honestly, look, and maybe this is a cynical take, but as soon as Israel moves on to the next objective, whether it's in the south or another area in northern Gaza, people are gonna stop focusing on Chief Hospital.
We
Like,
can only focus and agree on what we see, and the media is going to follow what's the next big hype. So I agree with that.
so next big hype. There was an interview on CNN with a former Israeli prime minister. I don't know if you saw this. Again,
No.
it's like I'm getting tagged in this video left and right, and I don't think it's the thing people think it is. So I talked about it in a video earlier today, but the former Israeli prime minister, essentially what he's asked, do you think Israel has proven the existence of this large network under Shifa? And he said, yeah, I mean, we helped build the bunker down there as Israeli contractors because we were in charge of the area. And yeah, that's what we built. And people jumped on this saying like,
Yeah.
oh my God, smoking gun, Israel built a bunker under Shifa. When you
Yeah.
hear that, what comes to mind? What do you think about that?
What comes to mind is I saw a report that like back in 1986 or something, Israel had known about this bunker. Have you seen that?
I think that's what they're referring to. Yeah.
Okay. My assumption was it was for the safety of like maybe an MRI room or like something like that. But the tinfoil hat in me is also like, this could have been used as a military medical center or something like that. I mean, I don't know. I don't know, but I can see why people are like, aha, I told you. Israel was on the media. Like,
But aha, I told you what? Like the claim
yeah.
is that Hamas is using a hospital for military purposes.
Yes.
Does it
Okay.
matter who built anything underneath?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a
Like
good point.
Hamas builds tunnels. We know that. They've built a lot of tunnels. So like the claim is not, I don't think, people are saying that every tunnel has been built by Israel. Of course, Hamas has expanded these in the past few decades. That's no secret. So like, I don't know.
The question is, what was the original intention for that bunker? Did he say?
I'd have to go back and check.
Okay.
But
Technically, anything can be a command center. I mean, I was in the army. You're in the army. You can turn a bathroom into a command center.
right,
You know,
a basement becomes a bunker in the right circumstance. I think that bunker
sure.
term is probably being used a little free and loose. I just
Okay.
like my take
Did he
on
say it in the intention of like, what do you guys expect, or was he like trying to throw some shade?
it looked like it slipped out.
Okay. Okay.
But I just like I don't think that it's some big smoke. It feels like one of those things where like Israel should have put this out weeks ago.
Yeah.
And
Right.
just got ahead of it. And I feel like we see this in any conflict, and the US is so bad at it. We trip over ourselves left and right all the
Yeah.
time. A piece of information comes out in the midst of a major event, and it's like, oh my God, this is a thing now. But it would not have been a
Right.
thing if you just would have said that at the beginning. It feels like that.
Right. Okay, so if like Israel, you're saying if Israel said, "Hey, we know that they're using it because we built it," do you think do you think they were afraid the narrative was, "See, Israel forced us to use it and they sort of, gave us the layup." Do you think Israel was a little afraid of that, or
I think there's a chance they just didn't even think about that.
okay, yeah, they're just like, "No, we know it's there, but we're not gonna
Like,
we know it's there because we built it, but we didn't say it."
again, if it's being used for military purposes, what if the United States built it? What if France built it? What if
Okay.
bin Laden built it? Like, what does it matter who built the area being used for
Yeah.
military purposes under a hospital, right? It's
Right.
the use of that facility, not the
Got it.
existence of it, I guess. I don't know. It's it's one of many things in this conflict that has just spiraled, in my opinion. It's been wild.
Yeah, and I think that's why both sides and everyone's really afraid with how they present things and how they say things. It's like you're being so sketchy when you don't have to be sketchy. And I know this is like a conflict, this isn't a game. And Israel has slipped up a couple of times unintentionally, in my opinion. Like they joked about how initially when they first went to El Shifa, they're in the MRI room, and then they're going on, they're like, "We didn't put this backpack here." They did. But when you say it like that, you're like, bruh, like, you're being a little sketchy here. I don't know how to read you. And a lot of comments were saying that, like, come on, Israel. So I see your point. I haven't looked into the interview per se. So if you stitch it into this, that'd be great. But yeah, I could see how it could come off as bad. And even though he maybe didn't intend it to come off as bad. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the way I could take it is maybe folks would point to that and say, Israel didn't tell us this. What else are they not telling us?
Yeah.
Um,
That's fair. And Israel is known to be like, I don't want to say secretive, but they utilize that. They're a small military, so they have to rely on that strike factor out of nowhere. Like at the beginning of the conflict, Israel took out Aleppo and Damascus runways out of nowhere, unannounced. They do things like that. They're known historically to strike first and to do stuff like that.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap up.
Yeah.
Here's to, knock on wood, the hostage release goes
Yeah.
well. People, maybe by the time you watch this are back home with their families and safe. We'll see. Hopefully that's how it plays out. But
it should go well. There's no reason as to why it shouldn't. I mean, these are real human souls, and like Hamas is like, yeah, they came to the table, Israel came to the table. So there is a glimpse of hope, that something might be peaceful here just for a little bit.
Like it. All right, Marcus. Appreciate you taking the time, buddy. We'll talk soon.
All right. Thank you for having me.